But unfortunately, after my dad married Veronica, he started keeping those funds from me and forced me to get a job just so I could afford even basic things like going out once in a while and buying new clothes and shoes that I desperately needed because I'd outgrown the previous ones. I mean, I know it's not exactly like he was depriving me of food or anything, but it still felt pretty bad. My grandfather still didn't tell my mother's side anything because he was afraid of the consequences and didn't know what they would have to say about this, so he just kept it all quiet. But once I got kicked out, he realized that he had to speak up for my sake and finally told them the truth. I was mad at my grandfather for never telling me about any of this, but then he told me that he had no option because my mother's family wanted this to be a secret. Apparently, they didn't want me to know that they were the ones paying for everything because then I'd probably want to meet them and they didn't want to meet me. Not because they didn't like me, but only because they said that I looked too much like my mother and they just couldn't bring themselves to do it, so it was more of an emotional reason than a practical one that stopped my grandfather from telling me anything. I was a little mad at him for never stepping up and telling them how my father and Veronica were treating me as well, but he said that he was afraid that if he spoke up about it, my mother's family would intervene and have me taken away from them. And then he'd never get to see me again. It was an irrational fear, but he was still afraid of it. We talked things out and I have to admit, I'm still trying to process a lot of it, but at least I know the truth now and I'm definitely not going to fall for my dad's manipulation because he's only trying to get me back so my mother's family will continue sending him the money and he can use it for his benefit. I knew that his new avatar was too good to be true anyway, so I'm not too upset about any of this. Update 2. I blocked my father after learning the truth about why he was so desperate to get me back. It's been a couple of days since then, and since he can't contact me, he started using Veronica's number to text me. And even she called me to let me know that I was being horrible to my father. I didn't have her number saved, so I accidentally answered the call. As soon as I heard her voice on the other end, I wanted to hang up, but curiosity got the better of me and I stayed while she pretended like she was crying and told me through mock sobs that my dad was really upset and she couldn't see him like this, especially in her condition, like she had a disease or something. I told her that I wasn't interested in speaking to her, and so she handed over the phone to my dad, who was about to say something, but I cut him off and said that he could drop his little act now because I knew the truth and I wasn't going to fall for it. He said that he didn't know what I was talking about, so I told him that maybe my mother's family could explain better, and then hung up and blocked Veronica's number as well. It was pretty satisfying to hand it back to them, and my grandfather thinks that I dealt with it well. In other news, I spoke to my grandfather and I told him that I really wanted to meet my mother's family. Even though I knew that they didn't want me to meet them because it was hard for them to see me. But I just had to see these people and thank them for everything that they did for me. It was a little difficult, but my grandfather finally managed to convince them to fly down here and meet me for the first time. I have seen pictures of my mother's family, her parents, and her older brother, but I guess meeting them is going to be very different. I don't know what to expect, and there's still a couple of days to go before I have to go see them, but I'm excited. And I know that no matter what, they're gonna love me, and even though this is my first time ever seeing them in person, I know that I'll love them too. Update 3. Hey, so I'm coming back from my first meeting with my mother's family and I'm happy to say that it went well. My grandfather was there with me every step of the way and I'm glad for it because I was pretty nervous. My other grandparents also were lovely people, and my uncle was actually just the same person as I am, but just a lot older. All of us cried a little when we saw each other, which was pretty awkward for the other guests at the restaurant to see, but we didn't care. We were just so happy to meet each other, and once we got over the emotional part of the meeting, they started asking me about my life and interests, and I told them everything, and they actually seemed to be interested and cared about me. They also told me that I didn't need to worry about my college fund because they had it all planned out, but had forgotten to mention it to my grandfather, and that was a huge relief as well. We had a great time overall, and we're going to meet a couple more times before they fly back home next week. They've promised me that we're going to meet every month. And they'll either have me fly out to them or they'll come to me, but we definitely will catch up every month, and I'm really happy about it.